With 2 decades at powerhouse brands like Blizzard and Kawasaki, Julie Farbaniec knows what it takes to lead at the highest level. But in 2021, she made her boldest Maverick move yet, founding leadership enthusiasts to help others do the same. Julie believes great leadership starts with knowing yourself, and that means challenging what you think you know. Today, she's here to show us how deeper self-awareness and courageous leadership really comes to life. Let's dive into Making Maverick Moves. My name is Gina L. Osborn, and I'm an Army veteran. I spent 6 years during the end of the Cold War as a counterintelligence agent. I was appointed as an FBI agent, and during my 22-year career, worked everything from Asian organized crime to terrorism. I became the Assistant Special Agent in charge of cyber and computer forensics. And then I came out of retirement and spent 2 years as the Safety and Security Officer at LA Metro. Now I'm here to help you make your Maverick move. Welcome to the show, Julie.
Thank you.
I've got my Girl Scout bracelet on. It says lift her up.
That makes me feel good.
We know each other because we were both on the board of directors for the Girl Scouts, and you still are.
I still am.
Here in Orange County. Mm-hmm. Yes, very good. Mm-hmm. I knew I loved you.
We were kindred spirits.
We are, absolutely. We look like we're sisters.
Yeah, I like that. It's a compliment.
Well, there's one thing that really amazes me, and the reason why I wanted to have you on the show. So just because you think it doesn't make it true. That is something that everyone should think about in any given day, because I think thinking something that may or may not be true and then running your life based on that could be devastating. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh. Well, as an executive coach, so it shows up most in my executive coaching practice because it shows up in 2 ways. The first is how I talk to myself and things I say to myself. Hello, inner critic. So it shows up that way, and then it shows up externally, right? So from a workplace perspective, you come into a meeting and I see your eyes roll or something, or you don't show up to the meeting at all, and I automatically make some assumptions based on that, and now it's true, but I haven't validated it whatsoever. And so acting upon those beliefs, or let's call it untested, unvalidated assumptions, can be a great cause for leaders, I think, even personally, right? If you're thinking about the assumptions we might make about ourselves. And so the act of reflecting and looking at those and testing and validating them and not treating assumptions as facts is like this, I call it like an evergreen issue that a lot of leaders deal with. And the ability to recognize that and maybe choose differently, that's kind of a big part of the work that I do.
Well, and I think we're so busy in the executive mode, in any mode. Everybody is running. So when something comes up, I think it's easier and faster just to assume something than actually to run something down and see whether or not it's valid.
Oh, yeah. And our brains like that, right? Like our brains like to create certainty even when certainty doesn't exist. And unfortunately, our pesky brains have this negativity bias also, where rooted in our survival, right? But now create sometimes at work miscommunication, misalignment, mistrust, creates a lot of, I called it the trio of unfortunate misses, those misses, but they can create a lot of damage. And so that's been, a big part of the work is, and particularly going back to the notion of like how I talk to myself, just because I think it doesn't make it true, right? Oh, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, or should is a really big word that at least I'll speak for myself, I use.
Yeah.
And I joke, right, that like I'm shooting all over myself because it's just, and so how can I test or validate that to know that it's true? And that's, I'm sure we'll talk about, but that's kind of the work.
Absolutely. And here we are talking about making Maverick moves. You have a Maverick move that we're going to talk about in a little while.
Yeah.
But I think this type of behavior that everyone does, I don't think I've ever met anybody who really takes the time, well, maybe I wasn't paying attention if I did meet those people, but that takes the time to really evaluate. And that that's a balance, right? Because you have your priorities, you have to get stuff done right away. But then when something happens that can derail you completely from making that maverick move or getting to the point where you're able to make that maverick move. So you and I have talked about this, and you were talking to me about something about a strategic pause.
Yes. When I was working in my, let's call it normal job, right? This is the thing I craved. And I couldn't see. Sometimes just the day-to-day and the grind and the meeting after meeting and not having time just to think and reflect, or having to use my weekends for that time and then being resentful for that reason. And so now in the role that I have now, where I'm brought in to help leaders create their own strategic pauses, it's there's this awesome quote by Viktor Frankl. If you don't know him, read about him. He's an extraordinary, human Holocaust survivor. And so this quote is just chef's kiss. So I'll say it, which he says, between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in that response lies our growth and our freedom. And the minute I read that, it just hit me right in the heart, because that is the work. It's chasing that pause, chasing that space to make a different choice. And when you're talking about making a maverick move and needing to pause and reflect, and even if it's, I am so afraid right now, I'm so scared, I'm going to feel it and I'm going to do it anyway, right? That kind of pause. But so that's the essence of a strategic pause. And so the work is sometimes from an executive coaching perspective, you need someone who's not in the day-to-day that can help you kind of pull up to be able to see, kind of your 10,000 foot level. Most importantly, though, I think, and from a leadership perspective, is that pause to choose your own response, to choose something different. And so, for example, I have a leader I was working with, and he was trying to change his relationship with conflict. He was, let's call it a conflict averse. And so the work that we did was chasing that pause, chasing that moment of what's happening for me in this moment? What am I feeling? Where is it in my body? He actually had a notepad, and he would start to write down, and then the pause was looking what are the themes showing up here? Are there common things that now I can see? It's all about trying to increase line of sight so I can see myself or my team or my environment more clearly. That's what the pause gives, is I think a greater line of sight, which when you have greater visibility, you have more choices, you have more options, versus if you don't pause, it's your default. Your unconscious is doing the driving, right? And that is not a effective place for a leader to operate.
Oh, sure. And if you're a suspicious person, or if you have trust issues, or whatever that characteristic is that is a flaw within you, that's the place you're automatically going to go. And that's kind of dangerous, especially when you're at a high level and you're making decisions.
Oh my gosh. Dangerous is a great word. A fantastic word.
Yeah,
right?
Because how many times have we had to dial things back because we reacted in one way because we didn't take that strategic pause, and then now all of a sudden we're left with a mess that we're going to have to dig our way out of.
Sometimes it's 3 steps forward, 5 steps back, right? There's repair that I might have to do. I might have to go and say, I'm sorry, right? Or something like that, or worse, right? Depending on what it is. So yeah, that's, I think the greatest maverick move any leader can do is just amp up their own self-awareness. Really crucially amp it up. And there's lots of ways to do that, and one size does not fit all. But amp that up. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? What's triggering me? Having the clear line of sight there. Oh, and now I can choose differently. Right? And that's the work.
Yeah, and maybe the first time you do it, it might take you a few minutes or an hour or a day or a month.
Yeah.
But the more you practice it, then it becomes secondhand. So I have my law enforcement background, you know about that. And when we're doing an investigation, we look for the evidence. And I was working with someone one time, and they brought something to me, or I brought something to them. I forgot how the conversation started, but okay, it didn't sound right. So it's like, okay, so what's the evidence that's leading you to believe this? And really, when you're in that situation, you think to yourself, well, there is no evidence. Maybe I did make that assumption without any evidence. So that's where we really need to think about things, because sometimes we're getting in our own way because we're making assumptions based on zero evidence.
That's right. Yes. So I just wrote about this actually in one of my I call them occasional musings. When the occasion strikes and there's a topic that's near and dear, I'll write about it. And so this last one I wrote around this idea, I called it ABV. So it was inspired by, there's the ABC, which is like always be closing, I guess, if you're a salesperson. I worked with this amazing artist named Sam Wise Didier, and he would have his was ABC, always be creating. And so that's the inspo. So it's always be validating. That's the mantra for, I think, any leader. And again, this applies to things I think or assume about myself and others. And so the antidote, I think, around this, number one, is that pause and reflect. What do I hear? How do I know it's true? Just to ask yourself that. Second is really lean into curiosity. Instead of judgment, instead of fear, lean into curiosity. Oh, how do I know that's true? How might I, what's the burden of proof here, right? To assess this situation. 3, ask. Then who can I ask? Who in my trusted resources can I ask? Ideally, the person directly, that, if it's between you and another person. And then 4th is allies. Like, are there other allies where I can get a different perspective that can help me establish this kind of burden of proof? And so between those things, I think those are great tools to use to ensure, but that pause is the thing, is to like, that's the quick question to ask yourself. How do I know this is true?
And sometimes while you're evaluating, while you're investigating, you'll find that if you and I have a dispute over something, that you're right and I'm right.
Oh, right. Yes. It was so important. I'm so glad you brought that up. I like this idea of like spectral thinking, right? That there's a spectrum of ideas and that two things can be true at the same time, and to accept that. And that sometimes I think in this day and age, there's a lot of either or. I love and. It's not or, it's and this could also be true. So I think that's another tool in any great leader's toolbox, is like embracing the spectral thinking, that a lot of options could be true. Maybe there's a whole spectral thinking spectrum of solutions or ideas or things that are a part of whatever decision you're making, but also being able and comfortable holding that both things are true. That's a really hard thing to do, particularly I think for a lot of leaders I work with, when there's like two really critical values that are equally important. So for example, I was working with a leader that they were having to deliver a product, right? So high quality, get it out the door, really important value. And I want to hire, but I want diverse hiring. I want to try and get as many different, candidates and people inside this organization that'll make us stronger. Both correct. Deliver and hire. And then when those two things, hit each other, that's that again is like the pause of like, okay, if both things are correct and both things are right, now I'm going back on probably things you've talked about with others, which is what are my values? What are the things there that I can fall back on when I'm dealing with two rights?
Right. And
an obvious right and wrong.
Sure.
That's easy.
Yeah. And at that moment, you really have to put your big boy big boy pants on, right? Because those are the moments that are not easy. And I think a lot of us really need to look at that. I mean, it's really easy to take one side or the other. And I think I've either been blessed or cursed with being able to see both sides of the argument.
It's powerful.
But again, I tend to lean towards one side, but being able to see that other side, it really is some interesting self-reflection, because I'm like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or maybe I could have done this better. But that's what we need to be asking ourselves. That's right. When we're searching for the evidence.
That's right. That's absolutely right. You said it perfectly.
Good. So when we talk about the internal struggles that we have with regard to the assumptions, because that's probably, I mean, externally, it's tricky because everybody sees it. But then internally, it's something that we're holding with us that could really, really slow us down and really, really derail us. So how do we deal with that? You know, how do we figure out those assumptions for ourselves internally?
Oh, gosh. I wish I had like a magic, here's the 3 things that will help you do that. It's different for everybody. So what kinds of things help? I think recognizing. So I don't know if it's useful. I mean, I can certainly share a personal story. So I'm noticing even my arms. So here's the reflection even in the moment. Noticing my arms crossed because it's like I'm about to share something really kind of personal.
If you give me one, I'll give you one.
Okay. Ooh, okay. Thank you. So I have a fairly active inner critic that is constantly with me. I actually gave her a name. I read or heard on a podcast somebody do that, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Maybe if I abstract this like voice, and her favorite word is should. I should be doing this. I should be doing that, and it's kind of all rooted in like being enough. And so knowing that, right, that self-awareness of that's what drives me. Anyway, so I gave her a name. I named her Gretchen.
Love that name.
Gosh, right now she's like, how dare you even talk about me? But, and it's because I didn't, it just sounded like a good mean girl name. And I didn't know any Gretchen. So apologies if there's any Gretchens.
I know one Gretchen.
I'm sure very nice.
This isn't about you, Gretchen.
Yes, sorry. And so, but that gave me, and also I'll give you another great resource for this kind of like self-talk, which is not mine, but there is a book called Positive Intelligence by Shirzad. And now I'm going to murder his last name. So I'm just going to say Shirzad, Positive Intelligence is the name of the book. His website has a free assessment you can take, which is called Saboteur Assessment. And his website, the first thing you would see when you go on it is your mind is your greatest friend and your greatest enemy, or something kind of like that. And the saboteurs look at what is underneath. So what's the driving self-talk that might be happening that is influencing kind of maybe every decision or everything that you go. So for example, there's hyperachiever, right? So if I don't have external achievement, then there's a stickler, there's a pleaser, there's like all these kinds of things. It's really interesting. And if you're at all want a little strategic pause for yourself, go to that website, take the saboteur, and then ask yourself, how do my saboteurs show up at work? How do they show up in my leadership? So another like freebie tool there. Where was I?
You're telling us a secret story that you're avoiding telling
so
us.
Gretchen. Okay, yeah, sorry. So Positive Intelligence, the book has a lot of tools in which to like essentially, how do I stay present in the moment? Because once I'm up here and I'm listening to what's up here, or you're in a meeting and you're thinking like, oh, I should have said this or I should have said that. Now you're not really present and listening to what's happening. So a lot of the work in the book is like, how do I stay present and how do I kind of manage that voice? And so in my case, for Gretchen, there was this is like an evergreen thing for me. She's always with me.
Yeah.
And I, for a long time, was very focused on telling her to be quiet. Shut up, I would say. Like, shut up, Gretchen. I've got this. I'm fine, right? And so somewhat helpful in the beginning. What that morphed into was I actually have to love her. I have to love her. Like she's this out of things that were born when I was young, trying to serve me, that was important at the time. Maybe some needs weren't met, right? And so she served a purpose there. And now as I'm evolving as a group, those same patterns of behavior, like that take no energy for me to do, those ingrained patterns of behavior, aren't serving me anymore. The shoulds aren't serving me. And so for me, it was a way to identify her. So now I'm like, oh, Gretchen, I know you love me. I know you're trying to protect me, but I got this. I'm going to do this. So that was maybe a long, convoluted, story about it, but it can be that's even just one trick to do. I have a client that calls his, his inner voice. He was in the military, so he'll say sergeant, and then what his last name, which I won't say here, it's like sergeant. And so because that particular inner voice is very exacting and is causing him more internal harm than good right now, and that's something he wants to get over. So we're kind of playing around with that.
I love it. So. I love it. Because coming from a military background, I get it. When you start using the rank with somebody, then it puts it to a whole nother level.
Yes.
But I know what you mean. With my public speaking, that's always been a weakness for me. And I had given a presentation when I was in the Army, and I got nervous. I couldn't speak. I melted down, and that was it. And so from then on, my inner critic, kind of went to the place of, well, people don't want to hear what, you don't have anything to say that people don't already know. So that was something that stuck with me from that incident. And so I never wanted to do public speaking again. So when I did this TED Talk, and for those people who know me, let me tell you, it was the first time that I really connected with the audience, because the audience in Manteca, what a beautiful community that they are. And I couldn't see them because the lights were so bright, but I could feel them. And that was the first time where I really put that inner voice to rest when it came to the public speaking point. So I think it really is a journey to get to that place. I don't think you can just turn it off right away, but it's something that you need to work on.
No, and I think there's a piece of it too that is courage over comfort. I have this other saying that sometimes I use of resistance equals curiosity. So when I feel myself wanting to say no, when I feel myself retreating, okay, what does that mean? And then there's the muscle building of feeling the fear and doing it anyway. I'm so scared right now and I'm going to go anyway. And I feel like it's at the gym, when you're starting to lift weights, the first or 10 times you do it, you're shaking, right, as you're trying to lift. But eventually, more times, you get stronger. And eventually, you're ready for more weight.
I love that you brought up courage. I had the courage expert, Sandra Fold-Waston, on my show. And she made a comment that children don't hear about courage anymore. I mean, it's not really something that is brought up. So when you talk about courage, why is that important to you? Because you talk about courage a lot, and I've known you for a while, and we talk about courage. So what does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, it's one of the big things that drew me to wanting to help support the Girl Scouts too, because a lot of their work is all about trying to build courage and confidence in young girls and women. I think because it's so vital to me. Well, in a lot of my work in the past, I've seen the dark side of leaders prioritizing their own comfort over, I guess, courage could be a right word, right? So whether that's, I'm not going to give this employee feedback that they need because I don't want them to be upset or it makes me uncomfortable. So I'm choosing maybe not consciously, but, there's that idea, that which we cannot see drives us. You can't change what you can't see. It's like a Jungian quote. And so the courage piece is not you've probably heard from your courage, it's not the absence of fear. It's feeling the discomfort and and enduring the discomfort that comes with doing something different or new, whether that's trying something new like a TEDx talk, which is amazing, by the way.
Thank you. You're going to do it next.
Should be so proud. Or having that conversation, or I'm in the boardroom and I have a point of view and I'm afraid to say it. And it's enduring that discomfort, and that only comes, and maybe the experiments can be really small at first, right? It doesn't have to be these big, like TEDx is amazing. But for others, maybe there's a little bit of building the muscle. And so whatever those little micro courage moments look like could be sharing a story on a podcast about Gretchen. It could be just telling you how I'm afraid or I'm scared, right? Like that's a big spectrum of ideas, but the idea of just feeling it and not letting that fear or discomfort make the decision for you, choosing, voting for who you want to be, right? And I also think there's some connection between courage, particularly when it comes to like yourself or whatever shifts you want to make, that enduring that discomfort, there's something about it, this is going to sound super corny, it's like an act of self-love. Because I'm choosing who I want to be in that moment. Maybe I'm not there yet, but I'm doing little baby steps. And then my brain goes to that physics principle, right? Things at rest tend to stay at rest. Things in motion tend to stay in motion. But the amount of energy it takes to get something from rest to motion is extraordinary. But once it's moving, and so it's like that's the journey, I think, for all of us. If, quote, I've been at rest with, I don't know, my relationship with conflict or something else that I'm trying to improve for myself. And so it's like little baby micro, and just let the momentum keep going and feel good. When you've done that small little thing, that was hard. So there's something there.
Yeah.
I'd like to encourage people to play with.
Because you did it. So this leads us into your Maverick Move.
Yeah.
So tell us about the baby steps, the micro Maverick moves that you had to make in order to start your own business, leave what you left. I'm going to let you tell the story, but that was a pretty massive Maverick move.
Thank you. At the time, maybe like other Maverick moves, it didn't feel like it at the time, right? It felt like full of fear and dread. But so I had a very long relationship with the last company I worked with. It was Blizzard Entertainment. They were, I just thought I would never leave. It was just full of tremendous, creative, smart humans, and I loved being a part of it.
And that is a massive company. What was
World of Warcraft, Overwatch, Diablo, Hearthstone, StarCraft, a lot of fun, amazing experiences that they are creating for the world. And so I think that leads to one thing so my Maverick move was leaving, honestly. My identity, all of my identity was wrapped. Who am I if I am not A, working at Blizzard, B, with this title? So, and I now in my coaching work, I realize how strongly identity can keep people in place. Because I can't lose what that was. It's who, like, it was like a part of my arm, right? So leaving almost felt like an amputation, self-inflicted amputation. Anyway, but there was this call, this like longing that I had. And I was talking to a coach about this, and he was chuckling as I was telling him, like, by the way, from the time the idea spawned of like, could I start my own thing, to when I actually left was like a year. So there's a long process of like, could I, will I, I'm so scared, what will happen, all of that stuff, imagine I don't want people to think like it was really quick. And he was chuckling as I was telling him these ideas of what I wanted to explore and try. And he said, wow, it feels like you're designing the rest of your life. And I was like, oh, that felt so good. Like, I was like, oh, I love how that, like, I'm creating, right? Instead of there is an editing process to it all too, right? What do I want to keep? What still serves me? What maybe do I need to let go of? So anyway, my Maverick Move was starting my own company. Leadership Enthusiast is the name of it. It's a little boutique consulting leadership development practice. I do executive coaching. I do work with teams, and I do like training and facilitation on the topics of leadership. And it sets my soul on fire. It sets my soul on fire, and every day I feel very lucky that I made that call. But make no mistake, there's not without fear, discomfort, right? I mean, at some point, I think I just said, well, what's the worst that'll happen? I will fail. I'll colossally fail. And then I guess I'll just go get a regular job again. So once, there's a little bit of self-talk in that too, right? How can I frame this to make it easier to step out over the unknown and experiment or try?
Do you remember specific moments along the way where you were building those muscles?
What was a couple of good moments? Yeah, I mean, I want to say like almost every day was because, I went from, let's call it, if I'll use an analogy, I went from a job and a role where every day was a sprint. Full, flat out sprint, meaning when I got home, I dropped. And then I had to get up and do it all over again. And so when you go from sprinting to no movement, like the quiet is very loud. And telling myself, I had this like prompt that I did. And sometimes I use it with clients now, but I like to write. So that's my method of like trying to like clarify my thoughts. But the prompt was, I used to be ... but now I am ... And the I used to be was like my current state. Tired, exhausted, not really doing the things that like fill my cup and make me feel like I'm making the kind of difference that I want to make. And then, but now I am. And then it was filled. And the idea of the prompt is you get really specific. Where am I? What am I doing? And so over time, there was like, I remember I started that prompt and then like would come back to it every other week and add more things until I had this very clear view of where I wanted to be and find myself. And that there's something empowering about that I chose this. I'm making these decisions. And that's like the things in motion tend to stay in motion. Like that kept the momentum going. But still a journey. I'm 4 years in and I don't have it all figured out, but that's part of the beauty, I think, is proceeding anyway. And with curiosity, proceeding with curiosity is, that's where I'm at today.
So if I were Gretchen looking at you from this side,
yes,
what would I have learned? What would I have learned? What was the biggest lesson that you learned?
I guess still learning. This sounds so crazy, but there's a little bit of like, I am worthy. And not just saying that words, but like feeling it internally. That inner critic, Gretchen would often say the opposite. And that these little micro wins, I would call them, of no, that's okay. I got this. And not making decisions based on those fears. So every time I made a decision, like doing a podcast, that every cell in my body was like, no, why would I do that? That's just very vulnerable and no thank you. And then choosing to do it anyway, like that's the biggest lesson, is continual belief in what I am capable of doing. And kind of going back to, I guess, Samwise's quote, like ABC, like I am a creator now as well, right? I am creating experiences and creating a career and a body of work that I'm immensely proud proud of and what I'm putting out into the world. And that's another thing, like a Gretchen thing, right? Like, can I put it out in the world because I believe in it and it feels good? And there's a distinction between that's the measure of success versus how many likes or how many people are watching. Like Gretchen lives in that space because what other people think, right, is what creates your worth. And I want to live in the like internally driven world.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. But when you make those decisions to do it anyway, I think that's when you start building that momentum. So when you decide, instead of saying no, and you say yes, and then you go and do something that you're not comfortable in, and then you do it again and again, then it becomes easy, and then you're starting with bigger things. So I think the moment you feel uncomfortable is when you need to start thinking that, hey, I'm on my way somewhere.
That's right. Resistance equals curiosity. Resistance equals growth. All of that is so true. Lean into it. Don't avoid it.
Yeah. And you said that seeing yourself clearly is a bold move and it's not an easy move. So how can people start seeing themselves more clearly in order to be able to have the confidence to make these moves?
Yeah. So from a leadership perspective, that is the greatest gift you can give yourself, is to amplify your own self-awareness. The ability for you to, and if you can't do it on your own, get folks around you that can help you see yourself, how you're showing up, your actions, your behaviors. A lot of leaders sometimes tend to measure their success based on their intentions, but no one can see those. And so sometimes intentions and behavior don't match. And so I think there is finding the strategic pause, finding reflection moments, identifying when this doesn't, again, all of this is rooted in what do I want as a leader. I want to do this or I want to do this. And then based on whatever those goals are, right, then you're chasing reflection moments there, pausing and saying like, why am I hesitating here? Why didn't I say something in that last meeting? What was there? And really starting to unpack and explore what's underneath all of that, because that is elevating the unseen and making it seen. And only then can you do something with it. So it sounds like, I wish I could give you like a 1, 2, 3. Here's how you amplify your self-awareness. There's so many different ways for different people, but that is the thing. Choose, I guess, the choice. Make the choice. That's where it starts. Make the choice to prioritize. Where am I here? What's going on for me? What's triggering me? Make those choices to strategic pause and think about it. Or create space in your calendar to do that. 10 minutes after that meeting, 5 minutes, scribble down some notes, right? It's making that choice. And even in making that choice is starting to go from rest to motion.
And you talked about identity. That kind of resonated with me because when you're in law enforcement and you leave, I mean, carrying a badge and a gun and having that authority to leave that behind. I think men have more problems with it than women do, but still, I mean, I think, but you're really kind of holding on to the past because when you, like you're talking about starting something where your soul is on fire, that's out there for everybody. It's just a matter of committing to yourself, valuing yourself enough to be able to make that step in that direction. And you're right, it's hard. It's not an easy process, but the glory and the sunshine is shining once you get to the other side. But all of those lessons that you learn, that's probably the best part of it.
I mean, the journey, the richness is in the journey. I mean, hopefully the destination's good, but I think it's all about the journey.
Yep, I agree. Well, I don't want to let you go before we talk about the Girl Scouts of Orange County.
Okay,
we went
happily.
Oh my goodness! So I have my bracelet on. We went to an event last week called the Voice for Girls, and they had this wonderful woman. She was an astronaut. Her name was Emily. What was her last name?
Oh,
I know it.
Sorry, Emily.
I know. We love you, Emily. She is the female Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Like the space gal on Instagram. I started following her.
Oh, you did? Yeah. Oh, she's amazing. She was
sharp, very smart girl.
100th woman in space.
Yeah.
And you know what I loved about her is that, she gets up on stage and, of course, a Girl Scout, a gold girl, interviews her. And I was so proud. That gets me every time. But here we have this, the women in space thing that has been going on, and people are talking negatively about, the value of that. And yet here comes this actual female astronaut who, and obviously these female astronauts are counting how many women came before them because she was the 100th woman in space and she knew that. But for the way that she talked about it, she said that it's good because people are talking about women going to space. So, I was just really impressed with how gracious she was about that. And then she showed a video of her going into space. Yeah. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. There was so much joy, and she was so thrilled, watching her in space. It was just really great. So what the women who are coming behind you, all of these young women who are going, and I think I bought probably 25 boxes or more of Girl Scout cookies this season because I cannot pass by a Girl Scout.
You got the courage to ask? I am saying yes.
Exactly, I know. I'm buying 12 boxes, probably eating them too.
Courage.
Exactly. Yeah. So for all of the women who are coming behind you and all of the great work that you do, what inspires you to really make a difference there?
Oh my gosh. I want to... In the work that I do today, I want to help create cultures and places of work that we want those young girls, where those young girls and women can thrive. I want women everywhere, regardless of age, to choose courage over comfort or fear, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And so that's like the biggest piece of why I love helping the Girl Scouts doing what they do. It is so much more than cookies in terms of what that organization is doing for young women, and also the tribe element of it. They're in troops and building connection with another female that we're here, like lift her up right on your bracelet. Like, I do not want to work or live in a world where women are, tearing each other down. There's no space for it. And so they are learning that we are here for each other. We're going to support each other. And that's inspiring. And they're just incredible, dedicated, the Gold Award winners. I always joke about this, but it is every single time it happens, I just think to myself, like, well, I am wholly unaccomplished. I was 16. I was not doing any of that. I was wrapped up in, me.
I know it.
And so the fact that these women are taking chances and trying to make the world a better place is just a constant source of inspiration.
Absolutely.
And so anyone that has a chance to support a Girl Scout, to support the mission of Girl Scouts, is putting their money in good places.
I agree. They put 4 gold Girl Scouts on the stage, and one young lady was talking all about the financial thing that she created for all of these people, and I was sitting at the table next to U.S. Bank, and so they were very interested in listening to this young lady, and then they asked her what she wanted to do when she graduated from high school, and she said she wanted to be a doctor. You should have heard the groaning that was going on at the table next to me. So, at 16, at 15, at 14 years old, these girls are having impact on all of us to inspire us to do great things.
Yeah. And also, I think what's always fascinating to me is I was such a late bloomer. I graduated college and I had no idea what I wanted to do, not a clue. And I was just fascinated. My younger sister, who's one of the most amazing humans in the whole entire world, Janine. Anyway, she always was so crisp on like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a therapist. I'm going to be all this. And I just would look at her and be like, what does that feel like? I don't know. And so that, having that kind of conviction at such a certain age, coming from someone who eventually found it, and along that path, found a lot of crappy jobs and not things that, filled me up. So, and just that drive, it's amazing.
Yeah. So bring it all, and this is one thing that I love about you, is because you are an artist, you are creative, and you brought this poem to my attention, and I want you to share some of it to really help kind of solidify the conversation that we had today. It's by John O'Donohue.
So I can read the whole thing?
You can read probably the first and the last paragraphs.
First and last?
Yes.
Okay, I'm putting on my glasses.
Yes.
I need to see. All right. So for those who would like the whole poem, it's by John O'Donohue. It's called A Poem for a New Beginning. And I brought this to Gina because it's just calls to me when I was in the midst of figuring out my Maverick Move. It was kindling, like a spark.
Read the whole poem.
Oh,
okay. Go ahead.
Did I sell it enough?
Yeah, you did. You did.
Okay. Okay. In the out of the way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you are ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, but still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight when your courage kindled, and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning. This is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit of adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be at home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses of the world that awaits you.
Oh, yes.
Chills.
Yes.
Chills.
All right.
Thank you for letting me read that.
Yes. So we're all going to go out and do that right now.
Yes. That's your spark. Go chase it.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Making Maverick Moves with Gina L. Osborn is produced and edited by Zill Media. Connect with us on social media at ginalosborn.com/makingmaverickmoves. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe to Making Maverick Moves wherever you get your podcasts.